Hey there, welcome to Prescribing Growth. This is the video series brought to you by Mobile Tech RX, where we talk to the top minds in auto reconditioning about how they've grown their businesses. My name is Matt McAllister. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer at Mobile Tech RX, and today we're joined by none other than Kevin Byrd. Kevin's got accolades for days, the owner of Ding Inc., 2011 PDR Person of the Year, MT International Dent Olympics judge, does wholesale, does auctions, fixes dents all across the country. I mean, what does this guy not do? We're super excited to have you on the episode, Kevin.
Thanks, Matt.
And what else are you up to?
I feel like I'm a good father and husband.
Of course you got to put that
important.
in there. Of course you got to put that in there. 3 kids, right?
3 kids.
And living in Tampa?
Actually, my oldest now in New York City.
Okay.
And my 2 others are in Tampa.
Wow.
I have 1 still left in the house.
Well, we appreciate you sitting down with us.
Yeah, thanks. I'm happy to be here.
So tell me about your business one. What is Ding Inc.? What is everything that Kevin Byrd is involved in the PDR auto reconditioning world?
What I do, my wife and I run this business out of Tampa, but I'm on the auction side, the dealer side. I do some retail, but I'm really geared towards dealerships, body shops, auctions, rental car companies, fleet accounts. If someone called me and said, hey man, I have 1,000 cars, call me, I'll come in, I don't stress, I'll knock them out. Don't even sweat it.
Wow.
Yeah.
How'd you get started?
I was a manager for the Hyatt Hotels.
No way.
Yeah, guest services.
What year was that?
Well, I started there, I put myself through college, so I started there in 1988 and for the Hyatt. And it was an amazing job. As a matter of fact, I'm still eligible for rehire, which if this doesn't work out,
you're always there.
I can go back. But yeah, it's good, man. It was a great job to do, and played a lot of sports in college and throughout my life. And I think what I did is I kind of combined my guest service background and my sports, and I put it together for business, and it's a winning combination.
Yeah. How do you go from guest services at a hotel to PDR?
I've always been a worker, always. And a friend of mine, Danny Beers, said, hey man, I've been doing this dent thing for a couple years. I think you'd be really good at it. You know, the way your mind works and how strategic you are. I really want you to check this out. And I said, nah, I'm not interested. Because I wasn't. I'm like, nah, I'm good, man. I'm gonna be a hotel manager. I'm probably gonna be a GM at a hotel. I'll live on property. They'll pay for everything. And then he said, well, last year I made this much money and I didn't work nights and weekends. And I'm like, I'm a little interested. And from that point on, it was a no-brainer. I said, man, I'm a fast learner. And I've heard this a million times. I'm a fast learner. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Dent business is hard. Yeah. It's going to take a while. And if you want to be really, really good, you better get the best training and get trained. I mean, you know, don't just think you're going to wing it and learn it on your own.
What do you think separates those new guys from the guys who are established in their market?
Knowledge. Now the advantage for the new guys, if they come in and they think they're going to swing a heavy bat and they're going to start, you know, talking, they're going to try and snake accounts or whatever, it's difficult because guys that have been around for a long time, they already have relationships that the other guys don't have. I mean, I thought I had relationships, and I've heard so many no's in my life. I'm like, come on, really? So then you realize you have nothing to lose. And that's when guys start dropping prices, which we don't want to see. We want to see, you know what, tag along, meet the older guys, get along with them. Guys have been doing this a long time, go meet them. They have accounts, they've got stuff that comes on their way that they can't handle.
How do you learn that though, if you're new in the business? That seems to be the big gap we're seeing.
You've got to go to every expo and show, and you got to be, I mean now of course with social media, you know who's who. You know who's good, you know who's not. A lot of times you can see their work, but you know who's networking. And that's huge. Networking is the biggest thing.
Tell me about training. When you say training,
oh man,
what covers? Are we talking about just physical skill training? What do you think about when you think about training?
You know, some of the advantages that the young guys have is, number one, their eyesight's fantastic, better than And physically, I mean, they're not injured yet. They haven't, gone through where their shoulders hurt and their back and knees. And then as you get older, I'm not saying, you're old and decrepit, but you've got to be careful. You got to watch out. You still got to maintain and exercise and try and eat good. But these young guys, man, I'm excited for them because I know they're the future. And I would encourage any one of them to say, man, some of these older guys are going to retire. I need to latch on to the right ones.
Yeah. So let's go back to your training days.
They wouldn't let me touch a car for 6 months, man. I mean, this guy says, hey, take this tool, which, by the way, we didn't have any padded tools. We used duct tape. And I just remember back then, I mean, your goal when you were buying tools, like, yeah, I can duct tape that. I mean, you duct tape the tip and you keep on duct taping. And then as you're pushing, you see the tip of the tool come through and you're like, apparently it came through the tape, And that's when wet sandpaper was amazing.
Sure.
But when I first trained, I had this guy, he's like, all right, push as hard as you can. Now I had a hood on sawhorses. And it was ratcheted down, with straps. And he's like, push as hard as you can. I'm pretty strong. I mean, I was playing rugby at the time.
Yeah.
And I pushed, and that I saw the tip of the tool come straight through the hood. I mean, straight through it. And he's like, okay, don't ever do that again.
Lesson 1.
I laughed so hard, I'm like, fair enough. Don't ever do that again, because that would suck after. I mean, obviously I would have to replace it or, go get it fixed. And I think the key to any good dent business is reaching out to other vendors, meaning body shops and body guys and interior guys. Because apparently, at some point in time, you're going to screw some stuff up. And you're going to need those guys on your team. So
you trained, wouldn't touch a car for 6 months.
Yeah, they didn't want me touching anything.
Threw a tool through a hood.
Oh, man,
Sure.
The tool throw for any trainee is one of my favorite events. Because if a guy gets really frustrated and he launches a tool, I'm like, that's a pretty good distance. The accuracy could have been better, but the distance was fantastic.
So then what happens after that training period? Because I think there's a lot of people out there saying, I'd like to get into this business. I hear from the thousands of people we talk to, it all starts similar to you. Somebody said, I make this much money.
Right.
I could get into this. They go through the training. There's a pretty big gap between being trained and being successful.
Right. So you can watch any guy. Like, I would encourage, hey, ride with me, ride with someone, and watch what they do. Check it out, I mean, there's plenty of videos now where you can watch someone who's really good at fixing dents. But how they got to that point and where their business is might be completely different. When a guy comes to me and he says, well, you can make more money chasing hailstorms. Maybe so. But that person has no baseline for where my financials are. The sky's the limit. You can make as much as you want in any business. If you're strategic enough and you're a go-getter, then go and get. There's money.
So how did you, after training, and tell me more about your business. How'd you get started with Ding Inc.?
Well, first I worked with my friend in the 90s, and I picked up some fleet accounts right away.
How?
Like I didn't have enterprise. I picked up Alamo account, so it was door-to-door sales. And I would go in and I'm like, I realize I have about 10 seconds to close their hardest closer, because the hardest closer is the manager. I'm like, man, this is, I wasn't scared. I'm like, I got 10 seconds, so whatever this guy says, he's gonna throw me out on my ass. Unless I'm like, hey man, I'll do it right now for free, check this out. And I'd go in and I'd spend hours and I'd, clean it up, glass it in, and they were like, yep, you're a dent guy. I'm like, fantastic. So 1 leads to 2, 2 leads to 4, 4 leads to 10. How do you get 10 big accounts and then people know who you are?
How do you capitalize? I think one thing you mentioned that I don't want to skip over is you did the hard work of winning the first few accounts, which is the hardest work. Nobody knows who you are. How do you capitalize on those first few accounts to get the next few accounts?
Relationships. very strategic relationships, meaning I can go in and meet a manager. Clearly, he's been around the car business for a long time if he's good, and he's been in other dealers, and he knows other people. And if you win that guy over, then he's going to tell his friends, like, man, this guy is really good. You know, and he shows up, which is huge. He shows up, he does the job. You'll be very, very happy. And the next thing you know, you get a call and you got 2 or 3 more dealers.
So you took that, expanded all over. What were you in Tampa at that point?
I was in Tampa. Well, at that point, I was in Orlando, Tampa, Lakeland, Sarasota. I mean, I expanded all over. Within 200 miles of my house, I was everywhere. Not just me, but I started picking off guys and
How do you hire? How did you know who to hire?
That's the hardest part. So I love the fact that these guys are the Dent meetup and the getting together. I love that. But we did this years ago. I started picking off my competitors one by one, and I would call them up, and I was so nice, and I was, started getting backing from some tool companies. Not backing. I mean, they didn't pay me, but I started, very nicely getting in with these guys, and I would say, hey, I need these tools, and I would help them out with some tool development, and I would send them some ideas, and they did it, and it sold, and I didn't want any money. I didn't want anything, but what happened was I started picking off these guys. I'm like, hey man, I've got a tool for you, and then so you hand them something for free.
Wow.
And they're like, this guy's all right.
So how do you find? Because for you personally, your business is your name, and it's different being behind, name your brand something. Your business is Kevin Byrd.
Right.
You win these accounts, you work on these accounts by yourself, you're known for your personal work. Now you've got an opportunity to grow, which means need more people. How do you control the quality going from one person to multiple people?
It's hard local. It is, because every guy still wants they want their own business. They want their own piece of the world to say, this is mine, I did this. So when you have a guy out there and he's like, man, I'm gonna go out on my own. You already knew this was coming. That's why I'm not really eager to train guys. I have, and they're like, oh, I'll give you 5 years. 5 years means nothing in this business, or any business. Hey man, I give you a trade. This is gonna be your livelihood for the rest of your life. You'll always have this skill. So to hire guys locally is very, very difficult. Now to hire on a national level is much easier. I'm not in Georgia. I'm not in Kentucky. I'm not in Texas. I mean, my business is, and I've got some business ventures coming on this year that I'm excited about, but there's no way I'm gonna take a guy from Florida and go, hey man, I'm moving you to, Colorado.
How do you find talent nationally though? How do you
well, that's why networking is so important.
I think a lot of people that we talk to, there's a few transition periods for a PDR tech that's difficult to figure out when to make the leap. One is tech to business owner. One is business owner to employees. The next is employees to scaling geographically. Those are very tricky points. When did you know, at each of those points, when did you know you wanted to go from 1 account to 6 accounts? When did you know you wanted to go from 6 accounts to 2 employees, from 2 employees to employees all over the country? What told you that was the right decision at that time?
It's just such a risk. If you're a high risk taker and you own a business, a lot of guys get comfortable. I'm not saying I'm not comfortable. I am, and I've obviously done something early on that did very well, but it didn't come out with, there was some sacrifices. I wasn't always there. I didn't see my family every day. I was busy. I worked nights and weekends. Guys see me on Facebook now, they're like, man, this is awesome. You're on the boat all the time, you're on vacation. Like, it came with some sacrifices early on.
How did you know that you needed to hire your first employee that wasn't Kevin Byrd?
I took on an account that they were a vendor with AutoNation. And they said, we need you to grow if you're gonna do this. Okay, let me see what I can do. I already had a guy training. I knew some guys that were local, that were good. And I'm like, all right, let me see if they'll do it. The numbers they weren't great numbers, but they were numbers, and it was high volume. I'm talking You know, for a good tech, you're talking 20 to 40 cars a day. If they're good. If they weren't good, I'm like, you're going to do 10 to 20. I mean, maybe 10.
That's still a long day for some people.
The damage was light. It wasn't like major damage. And I think there's a place for that. When guys tell me they do big smashes or they can do a crease properly, and I put them on it. I'm like, let me see it. show me. And I put them on it and I look at it and I'm like, okay, let me help you with a few things and it'll make you a better tech. And in the end, you'll look at it and go, oh man, I would have never thought about that. And I think that's the place where when guys come together and they're friends, they work together and they're like, oh man, do you have a tool that does this? Yeah, I do. If I don't have it, we'll make one. We'll get it designed.
So then the next big step, it sounds like, and tell me, curious for your take, is you have a solid growing business in Florida, Orlando, Tampa. Now you're talking about Texas, Georgia. It seems to be a risk to be separated.
Completely different. So I'll just give you the rundown. For so many years, I only handled my local dealers in Florida, and I handled Enterprise. And as Enterprise grew and they bought Alamo National, which was a big deal for them, in 06, where everything was starting to hurt, and go down, they made the purchase, and I don't know what the final number was, but the cars, I mean, they just increased their size so significantly fast. I did too. I was forced to, which was fine. I'm like, if I go in, I'm like, I don't want to give you sticker shock, but I can do a very large, high volume in a day. And if I can't do it today, I'll stay and I'll do it tonight, tomorrow, whatever it takes, I'm going to get it done.
So tell me about your relationship with Enterprise today.
Locally, they've made so many changes over the last few years. I don't currently service them locally. They made some changes based on the numbers. Wasn't just my numbers, but overall, and they went more of a corporate background. Not to say that I don't work with companies, that we still do work with Enterprise, and I still do Enterprise cars. I'm just not as heavily involved with them. And what that did, two things. As they grew, I wasn't able to grow my company because I was only focused on what they had in front of me, which was a lot. As that went away, I pulled back and I looked at a few things and I said, all right, well, 22 years was amazing. Now we're going to go after some different accounts. So I started working with auctions, and I started meeting reps. And my knowledge now of condition reports, overall numbers, wholesale loss, dealer profit, it's I go in and I start speaking their lingo, and they look at me like, wait a minute, we have a vendor that knows our business properly. So I go in, I don't go in and backdoor guys. I'm like, but I go in and I show them a more efficient way of doing business. And I use Mobile Tech RX to do that.
How do you even make yourself aware? How did you know that was an opportunity on the auction side? Because most people, they think wholesale or retail.
That's it. Yeah, they're just. I'm not closed-minded. If I was doing retail, I would attack it in a different way as well. And some of the guys that I'm sure you're going to be talking to, the way that they go about their retail business is phenomenal, and they hold on to those people because they know they're going to be repeat offenders. I'm not that guy. If a retail customer calls me, I'm like, I would love to help you, but I'm about 3 weeks from being able to help you.
So how'd you break into auctions?
A tryout, believe it or not.
Really?
I had a tryout. I got a phone call, and they said, "Hey, Kevin, we're trying to get guys to service our auctions in your area." So I went out, and it was a mangled fender, and I did what I had to do, and I pulled out a quick bench, and I didn't have duct tape at the time because I didn't need it. I was using padded tools already. So I went in, and he's like, "Yep, you'll be our den guy." I'm like, "Perfect."
So how does one relationship lead to where you're at now?
I don't let them fall. I talk to them. I keep those relationships going. Relationship building is huge. In this business, guys think it's just strategic to be friends with someone to get a personal gain. I don't do that.
Sounds like your approach to relationships, both with your accounts and with your competitors or peers, is what set you apart. Do you feel like that's something you do differently or better than most?
Yeah.
How do you stay organized to be able to handle all
That's
of that?
the toughest part. I mean, I have an iPhone, which is nice, because before I had a flip phone, and people are like, man, I know you can afford a nicer phone. I'm like, my kids wanted a nicer phone, so I just got them one. It didn't matter. Or I get send me a picture. This is years ago. I look at my phone, I'm like, nope.
Give me a camera.
Google it. Nah, not with this thing. Not with this dinosaur.
But one thing you said that I think was interesting to me, and this is, technology has changed a bit, is how do you communicate with accounts? If you've got 50 potential accounts that could be a mix of auctions, wholesale, retail, whatever it is, how do you still be the best possible vendor to them that you would have been to your one account?
Well, obviously strategy has moved along so much with not only your social media, but with Mobile Tech RX, having the right software and then linking up with auctions, dealers, retail customers. It's so important. And guys, if they fail on this, it's on them, because the information is available. Mm-hmm. You can take it and go, hey customer, check this out. Here's a national average. If you do it the proper way, you'll get the account. If you have the right software.
What's the proper way?
The proper way is to go in. Don't undercut the account. Don't go in and go, hey, I'll do it for $10 cheaper. Don't do that. You're only killing yourself.
So if you don't have that relationship, and I think we would all agree that the wrong way to grow a business is just to decrease your value, decrease your price.
Yeah.
How do you win new accounts without saying I can do it for less?
Well, obviously your software now is so strategic in this business, where I can go in and say, here's what I'm using. I'm completely automated. And if you don't like this product, it'll make your accounts payable life. We're saving trees here, okay? And I'll say
There's
that.
your message.
I'm like, we're saving trees, man. Come on. But what I try to do is bring on all of their vendors on the same product. Yeah.
Is that difficult?
My approach is for both. If it's a car guy, I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk cars. If it's a desk manager, I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk numbers. Hey, here's where we're at. What do you want to do? You can give me, if I went in and I said, how many cars a month do you sell? Which I already know the answer.
Yeah.
And then they tell me, I'm like, what's your wholesale loss look like? And they tell me. But first they're like, why? I'm like, I'm going to show you a program that I implement, and it's going to work, and I'm going to make sure that dealer profit goes up.
If somebody was saying, I want to go win this account, what research do they need to do to be able to walk in and talk to those people?
I would say they should probably Google, if it's a dealership, Google the dealership. Find out and go in and look at the guys that are working there. Look at the cars. If the cars are in immaculate shape and they're busy, that means they're probably a pretty good dealership. Either that or they're selling cars really cheap, which happens. But still an opportunity. Go and meet the owners. Drop a card. Hey, how are you? Nice to meet you. So the cold call days they just don't exist as much, because every dealership, every auction, they already have a guy. They have a guy that's been servicing them for years, or several guys. So, what's the advantage? I don't know. The advantage is probably, just having the knowledge to go in and say, hey, let's shake hands. Nice to meet you.
So, question for you. And I think this is one that not a lot of people talk about openly, but is vital for somebody who wants to know how to grow their business. Where have you failed? Where have you messed up, and what lessons did you learn from it?
My biggest failure was not having the right bookkeeping and accounting. I didn't have it in the beginning, because it's impossible to run a business, take care of kids, have a relationship, have a life, and then do all the paperwork. And, you know, with Carrie, my wife, coming on board, I mean, obviously it's just so easy. I would encourage any guy that comes into this business, have a partner. If you have a life partner, bring her aboard or him aboard. Bring who doesn't matter who it is. Bring them on, you know, bring your kit, whatever you got to do, because there's no way you can do it all. So yeah, I failed early on. I went through a couple audits, which really came out in my favor. It was amazing, by the way. Some of the stuff I wrote off, there'll be a book.
So
And when you see the title of the book, you're like, no effing way. How did you write that off?
we'll have you back on another episode for that. When that
You will
comes
laugh very, very hard.
out. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Last question for you. You've been in this business for 25 years. You've seen quite an evolution. And I think we're in the middle of even one of the biggest evolutions
yeah.
of the industry.
Yeah.
If you had to guess, what do the next 20 years look like?
I see just a forward push. The way that this industry has come together, I am amazed and excited at the same time. I mean, I didn't think it was going to happen the way that it did, because, you know, on a local level is one thing. A national level, international level, completely different. This whole camaraderie thing is really working out. Guys they're noticing. They're not coming in with a big ego going, man, screw that guy. No, they're coming in going, man, I like that guy. I like him because what he brings to the table is different than what I bring. And I want to learn from that. I want to pick his brain and find out how he did it. You know, how did you get to this point?
Well, Kevin, we appreciate you jumping on Prescribing Growth. Thanks, you, buddy.
Man. Appreciate you, man.
Great to see you.
You too.